Hello, everyone, and welcome to Liverpool Transfer Talk on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. Now, I thought this was going to be a quick show with little rumors to discuss. But in the last 24/48 hours, there has been a lot of rumors surrounding Liverpool. I believe today I've got about 12 rumors to discuss today. So yeah, it will be a show where there'll be a lot of discussions. So feel free to drop a comment and let me know your thoughts. So we'll start with the first rumor that took place on Friday night slash Saturday morning was Cody Gakpo. Now, the current rumor is that Roberto De Zerbi, the Tottenham manager, is keen to bring Cody Gakpo to Tottenham this summer. And apparently, Gakpo is also open to leaving Anfield after Arne Slot's departure, as they had a father and son type of relationship. De Zerbi said he's a long-time admirer of the Dutch forward and is currently working on a deal to try and get Gakpo to agree a deal. Now, my thoughts on that's music to my ears because I don't think Cody Gakpo is good enough to be a starter at Liverpool. I think he's good enough to be a squad player. But I feel like we're at the stage right now where if we want to challenge for major honours next season, we need to have quality players all throughout the squad. Now, having said that, we've got a young winger in Ngumoha, who, of course, you guys will know is tearing it up. Uh, had a man of the match performance for England yesterday, so he's definitely making the waves, and people are paying attention on the young superstar there. So that begs the question: would it be worth keeping Gakpo for at least another season? Because for me, if you've got a young prodigy like Ryan Gamoa, you have to give him game time. When I say game time, I don't mean a few cameos here and there. I'm suggesting that he starts week in, week out, and then in rotation with another winger, maybe someone that has a bit more experience than him, like a Cody Gakpo. So even though this is music to my ears that De Zerbi wants to sign Cody Gakpo, I don't think it's the worst case scenario if we do keep him. And that's me being brutally honest here because I feel like there's a lot of areas within our squad that needs strengthening. And I don't think left wing is the one that needs to be touched right now. But, I might be, signing a bit contradicting here because I have been saying for weeks that I don't want Cody Gakpo in the team. But I'm thinking maybe he can provide that experience option off the bench and allow Ruben Kamara to really go on full flow and showcase his talent to the world. But at the same time, we could still sell Cody Gakpo and get another winger that would come in to be, you know, a player in rotation with Rio. So only time will tell. But in terms of this news, let's see if it develops from a player's point of view. If he does feel like there is no future for him at the club, then he of course has to explore his options. And I don't think Tottenham is a bad place for him to go to. I know they just survived in terms of Premier League status, but they've got a good coach there in Deserbi, who of course just joined a few months ago. So this preseason he'll get to train his squad and get them to play in his sort of in terms of his philosophy and his sort of system, the way he wants to implement the team going forward. And if you look at the players in the squad, he's got the likes of Robertson, who of course will be aware of course being former teammates. You've got Xavi Simons, who's his Dutch teammate as well. So they've got some decent players around him that I feel like could complement Cody Gakpo's position. And I also feel like Tottenham haven't really replaced Heung-min Son since his departure a couple of years ago. And a player like Cody Gakpo, with his Premier League experience and international experience, he would actually be a good fit for them. So let's see, what happens with this rumor. I do think there is a potential that he could go on and move there. The fees are reported to be around 73 million, which, yeah, if that is the case, then sign me up because I think that would be a great deal for both Liverpool, Tottenham, and Cody Gakpo. So all parties should be satisfied if there's any truth to rumor. So we'll have to wait and see in terms of if there is anything to the story. Now, moving on, we've got Rio and Ngumoha. Now, something that I didn't expect to see And apparently, Bayern Munich are weighing up a move for the young winger. They have been assessing a number of options, and apparently, he has emerged as a leading candidate for the left flank. There's also been rumors to suggest that Rio's already had private discussions with Vincent Company and has verbally agreed a deal to move over to the German Giants. So my thoughts on that, I was quite surprised to hear that he's had private discussions. There was an image floating around. I don't think it was real. It looked like it was either a different player that Vincent Company was talking to, or it was AI generated, which unfortunately we're going to see a lot of that, in the coming months, and in the near future, just because of the way technology is. I'm quite surprised in terms of that approach, that they're trying to get the player. But at the same time, Liverpool have communicated and they have said that he's not for sale, which is the right message to present to the world. And it's ironic because we've been linked with Michael Lisa over the last few months, and their president has been very vocal to say that we don't want to do any business with Liverpool. If they want to do business with us for Elise, they have to break the bank. Of course, they're still very bitter that we snatched Florian Wirtz off their hands last summer, so they won't want to do any business with us. So I don't know if this is their way of getting back to us in terms of revenge, because we took one of their players and now they're trying to get one of our future stars in the making. But I'm hoping that there's no truth to these rumors, and I hope that Rio Ngumoha knows, what his position is at the club, because under Arne Slot, he may have wanted to move on, and that's not me, trying to sound like I'm, going over the top here. Things weren't looking great at Liverpool under Arne Slot, and if he was given another opportunity next season, there wouldn't have been any guarantee that Rio would get more game time going forward. So with the new change at the top in terms of a new head coach in Antonio Ola, it's a different proposition now. Hopefully, he'll have some dialogue with the new manager, and I'm sure Iraola will let Ngumoha know that he is the future of the club. So everything is pretty much going to be built around him for years to come. So hopefully, that will be enough to persuade him to stay for a bit longer. Uh, just going to go through some of the comments and then we will move on to the next rumor. Bo says, thoughts on the real news, Oz? Did it caught you by surprise? Big up, Bo. Hope you're doing well. Yes, it did caught me by surprise. I wasn't expecting to hear that a verbal agreement has taken place or he's had private discussion with company. I was very surprised, and it's not very ethical by Bayern Munich to even have those kind of discussions like that. Of course, I know that's the nature of the game. Clubs do that, and Liverpool probably do that as well. But yeah, I was very surprised to hear that news come out. Hopefully, there's nothing to it. It's a closed chapter, and Rio Ngumoha is a Liverpool player next season and knows that he is not just a player for next season, he's a player for the long-term future of the club. So hopefully he understands and realizes that, because we're probably one of the few clubs, especially in Europe, that will give young players the opportunity to play. A player like of his age profile, most teams won't even play their 17, 18-year-olds. So I think, he'll understand that he's in a very fortunate place, and Liverpool will give him the platform to elevate his game and really showcase his talent to the world. So hopefully, that's the way forward for us as well as Rio Gamoa. Wayne said, big up Aussie in chat, big up Wayne, hope you're doing well. Wayne said, I'd let Gakpo go, but the problem is we got no depth, so why add one more thing to do to this? He's going that's a good point, and that's something I've been thinking of for the last couple of days. And you guys will know my take on Gakpo. I've been very disappointed with his season. I'm not saying he's a terrible player, but from what I saw, I just feel like he's just not the right fit for us. And it's not like he's a player, towards the latter stage of his career. He's approaching his prime years right now, but he's not playing in the manner that he should be played as a left winger. So in my head, I'm thinking maybe it's time to move on and get someone, fresh for that left wing position. And we could still do that. It just means more work to do in that regards. But if we're able to get a deal like this, where let's say it is true that they want to spend about 70 million on Cody Gakpo, then I'm all ears. I feel like we should accept that. and that money can easily be reinvested into another left winger. So, like a Bradley Barcola, it took me 10 minutes to mention his name there. He could be the type of profile that we look for to come in, be a starter, but also allow Rio to challenge for that spot. And if you watch the England game, Rio played on the right hand side. So that shows you that he's versatile. He can play on the left wing or the right wing. So it gives us a great proposition in terms of utilizing Rio Ngumoha next season and going forward as well. So let's see what happens. But we do need to address the wing areas. I also feel like we need to possibly address the attack as well in terms of our striker role because Ekatike is out until February. So let's see. We do have a lot of work to do. I feel like we can sign the least amount of players that we'll probably sign is 4 or 5. But if we're going to do a full on surgery, I guess it will end up being 6 or 7. I feel like that is going to be around those numbers. So let's see what happens with the club. LFC Monster said, "What's good, audience chat? Big up, LFC Monster. I hope you're good. If we sell Gakpo, which I'm up for, we go get Diomande and another like Bowen. Diomande for me would be the player that replaces Salah. So that's more for the right wing. And Bowen would occupy the right or provide cover for the right wing and the striker role. So that doesn't really help or resolve our issues in regards to left wing because then it's just Rio on that side. So we actually need to sign another player. So we end up signing. We need to sign 3 players. If I'm being brutally honest. So now if we sell Gakpo, we need to find a like for like substitution, and then the other 2 players you mentioned, those 2 players will be replacing Salah. And in terms of his contributions as well, in terms of goals and assists, because it can't be done by one player. I don't think you need a couple of players to chip in. And remember, Chiesa could be leaving as well. So that's 2 right wingers leaving the club. So we've got a bit of work to do this summer. Zebi, if he won't get a forward figure with him, that's true. This Rio is just buying, trying to unsettle him. There's the whole god about verse. I think you're spot on. I think that could be the case. Fletty Pratt had to backtrack so quickly on Rio. Yeah, he did. He got a bit happy on Twitter, didn't he, in terms of releasing that news. But yeah, thankfully there's no truth to the rumors. Ozan, big up Ozan says, yo, big up Aussie Live, big up Ozan. I hope you're doing well. Um, if this real thing is true, Bayern have just admitted to tapping up. Yeah, they're not going to admit. Even if they did come to an agreement with the player, they can't actually say it's true because they would be in a heap of trouble. So yeah, they won't accept it, unfortunately. Because I wouldn't mind them getting punished in that regard. But I don't want to see real leave at the same time. So yeah, probably best that it's just left alone and then we just move on from here. Gakpo 50 goals, 3 years, according to Ray. Yeah, but it's not just about goals for me. He hasn't performed to the level that I wanted to see last season. For the last 10 or so games, he played as a striker and didn't score a single goal. So for me, people say people need a run of games, and he got that run of games that didn't showcase anything. Probably for me, he's been one of our weakest attackers all season. So if you're a fan of his, that's all good and well. For me, he's not good enough. LFC Monster says, should have sold Gakpo to Bayern last summer. Hindsight is such a good thing. Yeah. They wanted either Diaz or Gakpo. Gakpo would have been the better option. I do agree with you on that one. But yeah, unfortunately, due to Luis Diaz's current contract situation, I think it was just a bit more of a attainable target for them because with Gakpo, of course, he hadn't signed the contract by then, but they must have been some sort of inklings that he was going to sign a new deal, so that probably made them go through the other route in terms of finding an alternative player. But yeah, in hindsight, it's definitely a thing. Oz said Real versus is key Ozzy because it doesn't look like he will sign a right winger. I don't know. I think it's too early to say who we're going to sign right now. There's a couple rumors circling today that we might be in pursuit for a particular right winger. So you just never know. It's very early, and of course, the World Cup is starting next week. So I feel like, of course, that isn't timed well from a club football point of view because you're going to see a bit of slow progress when it comes to transfers in the next few weeks. But at the same time, it gives us a chance to reflect on the squad because Irola will definitely be doing that. He will be doing his homework in terms of where Liverpool went wrong last season and what areas need to be improved on. I'm sure he'll be writing up a short list to what players need to come in. I'm sure they'll be doing their due diligence to try and get some level of discussions happening in the background and hopefully getting some deals concluded as well. So for me, there's a lot of work to do. And right now, there's nothing to suggest that we're not going to get a right winger or a left winger. I'm sure it's on top of our agendas, so we'll have to wait and see, who the club end up signing. Seismically, so it says, so many new players and new coach. What would be your expectation for next season in the Premier League and UCL? I'll give you a proper answer at the end of the window because I feel like that's going to be key in terms of who we recruit. Right now, I don't think we're good enough to compete for the Premier League or the Champions League, and that's just because of our current squad situation. We've just let go of Salah, Robertson, Konate, so those positions haven't been filled. So until they haven't been filled by specific profiles, we won't know how much of an impact those new signings will have and how much our squad is sort of presented in terms of squad depth. Do we have the quality to challenge for the Premier League and the Champions League? So I'll have a better indication once we have recruited some players and we know what the squad is going to look like for next season. But right now, if you were to ask me at this current moment in time, no, we're not competing just because we have a lot of gaps in our squad. When was the last time a great talent like Rio came out of the academy? I think the last one would have been Trent that came out of the academy. Of course, we signed Rio from Chelsea, so he's not someone that came through the actual Liverpool academy, if that makes sense. We bought him as a young player a couple of years ago. And of course, he's been training with the academy, but he hasn't come through the ranks, if that makes sense. So I would probably say Trent is the last one that has come through uh, in that way. Speaking of the World Cup, did you see Fabio Mosa last night? Yeah, and Alisson having a nice little chit chat in the middle of the park. Yeah, reminiscent in terms of our prime team from a few years back. Still can't believe we haven't replaced Flacco with a true out and out proven DM. I hope this summer is the time where we do because yes, that is the profile that we are missing in this current team and current squad. So yeah, hopefully that will be addressed in due course. Ray says it's so disrespectful to Jota's memory that people didn't expect his death would have negatively affected the team and the club. I don't think anyone's been disrespectful in terms of Jota's memory. We've been speaking so much about Jota over the months, and he someone will always speak or always remember. So I don't know where you've got that kind of notion from that. Where as a fan base we're being disrespectful to his memory. Of course, his death was, it was something that came out of the blue. It was a sudden death, and of course, it had a huge impact on the squad. But even saying that, we can't use someone's death as an excuse in terms of why we were so poor last season. The reason why we were poor, it was down to Arne Slot's tactics. Just to say in simple form, I don't want to get into it in too much detail because now it's the past. And I don't really care about what Slot didn't do last season because it's been something I've been speaking about for weeks and weeks and weeks. So for me, it's kind of irrelevant now in terms of how poor we were last season because we all seen it for our eyes. If you still are a supporter of Slot, that's up to you. That's your opinion. But I'm on the notion that we were poor because of Slot. It wasn't because someone passed away. Yes, it had a huge effect mentally for the players, but at the end of the day, the tactics that was presented for these players did not suit. It wasn't a mental block. Well, that was the reason why we didn't play. We just didn't play, or we didn't set out the way we did previously. So it's not good about just pinning on one thing or one excuse. There are multiple reasons as to why we were unsuccessful last season in terms of reigning champions. We did not act like champions. We did not play like champions, and we're by far a shadow of our team that won the league a couple of years ago. So yeah, that's the way I would look at it, to be honest with you. LFC Monsters, for me, Rio is starting left wing, Diomande right wing. Bowen, cover for both, will still be short, but I don't think will be short. That is this summer, given how short we are elsewhere in the squad. I don't think that's a bad trio to have. So if we've got Rio on the left, Diomande on the right, and yeah, if those are three attackers, we need a fourth attacker. There's no way we can start the season with no fourth attacker. So that's why I said if these rumors are not true in terms of Gakpo going to Spurs, and we keep Gakpo for another season, I wouldn't be overly against it. But for me, the key is that Rio on paper is the starter and Gakpo is the one that provides the cover. That's the way I would want to see it. Because then I see Gakpo as a player that can cover left wing and the striker role. And you also have Bowen who can cover right wing and the striker. And then you've got two young wingers in Rio and then Diomande on the right hand side. So it'd be quite a good balance to have two young up and coming wingers, but then you've got experience off the bench as well that can also be impactful in certain games. So for me, that wouldn't be the bad balance in terms of our front line. But if it's just these three, I don't think that's going to work. We need a fourth attacker for sure next season. With the squad we have and the players we are linked to, do you think we are doing a Chelsea game, all young players, and hoping it works? No, I don't think so. I think in terms of players that we've been linked with, uh, they're more experienced players in comparison to just being young profiles. Of course, I know we looked at one of I forgot his name, the German midfielder that we looked at the other day. So we are trying to sign players for the future. But I do believe that we will sign ready-made players that can be starters or challenge for a starting role in the squad. So I don't think we're doing a Chelsea. We're not going to sign about 20 players and have 60 players currently in the squad right now. I don't think that's the route that we're going to go with, to be fair. Speaking of Chelsea, Lavia still hasn't played a full 90 minutes since he signed. But it does, yeah. He had injury issues before we were linked with him, but it seems to have followed him over to Chelsea. So yeah, bullet touched indeed there. Anything wants to do you know much about our youngster Josh Abe? Turner, 50K a week, planning to stay at Liverpool, but never heard of him until the news came out. Oh no, I'm aware. I'm sure a lot of the viewers are aware as well. He is a top talent. If you're viewing Rio as the next big thing or the next top superstar at Liverpool, Josh Abe will be right behind him. He's that type of caliber of a player. And the beauty of this situation is that Rio's a left winger predominantly, and Josh Abe is a right winger. So we could see Rio and Josh Abe occupying the wings for years to come. That's the vision. I think that's the dream that the hierarchy at Liverpool want, and that's the dream that I'm sure some fans would want as well. Because Josh Abe looks like an unbelievable talent, and for him to be turning down that kind of money by clubs like City, Arsenal, United, they were all sniffing around trying to get his services. So I'm glad that he understood in terms of what Liverpool can provide for him as an institute in terms of playing time, a pathway to the first team, whereas these other teams might not be able to guarantee that. So for me, the future is bright. And if Josh Abe continues to develop, he has done in the last year or two, we'll see him in the mix very, very soon, in my opinion. I'm sure we'll see him in preseason. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him in one or two Carabao Cup games as well. So that's the type of level of talent he is, which is exciting for us going forward. A guy like Diomande, who is only 19 with only one season in Bundesliga without Europe, shouldn't be starting at Liverpool. Plus, he's way too expensive. I agree. I like him. I think he's an unbelievable talent. But the reason why we're so strongly linked to it is because the market is not the best when it comes to signing right wingers. There aren't many options out there. Of course, if you look at our current league, you've got Bowen, Minte, but those like Bowen's good. Bowen's a solid option, but of course he's 29, going on to 30. So it's not a player that you can build your team around, or you're expected to be around the team for years to come. So we have to sign a young profile that can kind of fit the bill. That's that in terms of what Salah brought to us over the years. And I know the price is high, but unfortunately, it is the market rate. Gordon's gone to Barcelona for about 70, 80 million. It's the going rate, unfortunately. So we'll have to wait and see. If Liverpool feel like he's the guy that we need, um, then I'll have a bit of trust in terms of their judgment there. But we'll have to wait and see, as there is a lot to unfold because I'm sure there'll be lots of rumors circulating for weeks to come. Um, Yamal would be a great option. Yeah, he would be an amazing option. Unfortunately, he is not available. Now, moving on to the next player, and that is Bradley Barcola. Of course, he had to be mentioned at some capacity as he's a player that I've been admiring for quite some time. But the rumors might come to a close because the rumor at the minute I'm hearing is that PSG have placed a hefty 130 million pound valuation. Sorry, 130 million euros. So in pounds, that would be around 120 million pounds. No, 110, sorry, because it's the same valuation that they present for Diamond. It's 110 million pounds on Bradley Barcola to try and fend off interest from Arsenal and Liverpool. Last season, he registered 15 goals and 12 assists across all competitions. Uh, but because of this new price tag, neither club will be willing to meet PSG's demanding price. So my thoughts on that, if that is true and that's the kind of price range that they want, then yeah, on to the next one. I would say to that because there is no way we're looking to spend 110 million on Bradley Barcola. I doubt we will even spend that much money on Deal Monday. I think for Deal Monday, we're going to try and get a deal closer to about 70, 80 million pounds. And even that, I believe, is still quite high for a 19-year-old. But over 100 million, no, I don't think that's going to be the case. And plus, with Bradley Barcola, there's even though I admire him, I think he's a fantastic talent, he's still not the complete article. He still needs some refinements, especially when it comes to finishing. Although he scored 15 goals last season, which would beg to differ that he doesn't need help. He does. If you watch him play, he creates a lot of chances for him. So that's what appeals for me about Bradley Barcola, is that he gets into great positions and is able to create a lot of chances due to his movement and due to his pace. And if he's able to refine his finishing where he can come across as more of a cold and calmer presence in a one-on-one situation, for example, he will definitely improve those tallies for years to come. So a player that I like, but at that price, I think it's going to be too steep for Liverpool to try and sign it, if that makes sense. So let's see how this develops, but that is a huge amount of money, to be fair. Back to the comments. LFC Monster says, yeah, I see Josh A will be. We've seen a team for preseason. We're looking forward to seeing him. Yeah, he's a great talent. So yeah, looking forward to seeing him play as well. Sesame Kulu says, I don't think PSG will move forward with Diomande. Too expensive. They want to keep Barcola, who is a lot experienced, unless Barcola wants to leave. The thing is, Barcola hasn't signed a new contract and doesn't want to sign a new contract. I think he's got 2 years left. So maybe because of that, the club are at a crossroad. Do they sell or do they keep him? That's the decision that they need to make. They're not at Liverpool. They're not going to let players run out their contracts because no club does that other than us, unfortunately. So they'll have to think wise in terms of what do they do in this current moment. Do they sell him or do they keep him on board and hopefully he signs a new contract? But the problem is he won't be a starter. You've got Kvaratskhelia, Ousmane Dembele, and Desiree Doué. Those players are ahead of him in the pecking order. So he's regarded as the fourth attacker in the team. So a player that will, on paper, start on the bench. But for me, could get more game time if, players are out of form. But, you know, generally those players aren't out of form and generally they stay fit as well. So game time could be limited, or it's just cameos here and there off the bench. And despite that, he's still got a good return last season. He had a good return in the previous season as well. So that shows me that he's impactful off the bench. He's impactful when he starts, even though it might not be as regular as he would like. So he's a player that can definitely produce the output that is needed. But of course, I still feel like there's areas of his game that he can improve on. Arden said, "Would a Jabon signing be underwhelming for you?" Um, Slightly, because I don't feel like that's the one signing we just need. If we're going to sign a right winger, I think it has to be two right wingers. That's the way I would look at it personally. Um, with the possibility of Chiesa leaving, we'll speak about Chiesa very shortly, but it's most likely that he will be departing from the club. Because of that, I don't expect us to just sign one player to cover two players in terms of Salah and Chiesa. But I would like to see Jared Bowen sign. I think what it does is it gives you a Premier League experienced player available in the squad. And if we do sign a Diomande, or if we sign another profile like a Diomande who's young, up and coming, then you can kind of fall back on Jared Bowen to start more games, or they can rotate. And of course, that young player can learn from Jared Bowen as well due to his Premier League experience. So for me, I think Jared Bowen as a signing would make sense. If he's the only right winger as a Salah replacement, I would find it slightly underwhelming, but then I would also look at the squad. Where else have we improved, or what other positions have been addressed? So it will just come down to what we've done collectively in terms of transfer business rather than just that one position. But I have said this before, I would like us to sign Jared Bowen plus another right winger in the squad as well. If it was a reasonable price, I think it will be a reasonable price. I think it will be our sweet spot instead of 35, 40 million pounds. I think that would be enough to get Jared Bowen over to Liverpool. Excuse me. Wayne says Barcola, a good player, but his end product worries me for the price. I take Liao better finisher if we do what we did with Salah. With Liao, going to get his laziness off the ball. So in terms of your point about Barcola, yes, he is a good player. His end product worries you for the price. The price is high, it's hefty, but he still got 27 GA last season. And considering he wasn't a starter, I think that's an amazing stat, to be honest with you. So for me, that wouldn't be a concern. If you look at the market, there aren't plenty of left wingers out there either. The market's really dry when it comes to wide forwards. Um, so it might just be the going rate. I still believe it's too high. I won't deny that. I'm not just going to blindly say, yes, let's get Barcola at any price. There is a valuation for every player. In terms of Liao is definitely a better finisher. I would agree with you on that one. But I don't agree in terms of the comparison you've mentioned with him and Salah. Salah wasn't a lazy player. He wasn't a lazy player at Basel. He wasn't a lazy player at Fiorentina, Roma, Chelsea. You know, he was always a hardworking player. Whereas Liao, he's not that type of player. He's more on the front foot. But when it comes to tracking back, you know, he's not bad. I would say in his younger days, he didn't have that sort of commitment or that desire. And it has improved with age. But I feel like at this stage of Liao's career, I feel like he prefers to play as a striker. Last season, he played predominantly as a striker for AC Milan. Can, of course, do a job at left wing, but I don't know about Leo. I do like Leo. I do rate him. I just have a feeling that he won't even want to come to the Premier League. I remember watching an interview with him a couple of years ago, and he spoke about possible destinations. And for him, it was more about lifestyle. So, you know, living somewhere where there's sun, there's, you know, a different kind of atmosphere. He's not going to get any sun in England. So it might be where he tries to get a move to La Liga. He has mentioned La Liga in a statement he released a few days ago. So I feel like that's the most likely destination for Leo, that he goes to La Liga and plays for maybe an Atletico Madrid or one of those type of clubs. So I don't think he views England as an option unless those are the only options, if that makes sense. But let's see what the future holds for Liao. Do you think Liverpool might have screwed the market a bit for best players last season with the insane price tags of Verts and Isak? Yeah, I feel like from the hierarchy's point of view, they might be a bit more reserved and think we can't spend big again because, you know, the two signings we spent big on, they haven't quite worked out yet. But having said that, I feel like those two players, once they're fully fit, once they're in full flow, they will show their quality. I'm very, very positive of that. So that's what excites me about next season, to see Verts and Isak in action. But they will. I feel like if they are serious businessmen, they have to forget that. To be honest with you, you can't be too cautious when you enter the transfer market, especially during a period where We've got a new coach, so we're naturally going through a transition now because there's going to be a new way of playing, new philosophy embedded. So because of that, you have to back the coach or the manager, whatever job title he wants to refer to, because that would be unfair if he's not given any backing whatsoever. And looking at our squad right now, we are incomplete. There are a lot of gaps that need to be addressed. So hopefully they can do that in the coming weeks. I'll go saying about this summer, it would be Madrid with this. Yeah, so Madrid are looking to spend £150 million on Elise, which is absolutely outrageous. What was the idea behind bringing Chiesa to Liverpool? Seemed like he never got a chance. I think with Chiesa, it was just an opportunistic signing of getting an experienced and high quality player at a top price. You're not going to get a player of his quality for £10 million. So because of that, Richard Hughes thought it was a great deal. Brought him on board. I don't think Slot was overly pleased about it. I don't think he was his type of player, which is why he was never given a fair opportunity in the last 2 years. Costalicia says, no, I wouldn't want Bowen. I want Elise. If you do a trade with Chiesa and 100 million, then Bayern will never turn that down. Would also look at getting Stones in on a free. We're not getting Elise. Let's not kid ourselves. 100 million plus Chiesa. I don't think they're going to want Chiesa as part of the deal as well. So that's not going to happen. John Stones on a free. Not for me. I think John Stones has had so many injuries over the years. It wouldn't be wise to sign another injury-prone player. Makes no sense for us. LSC wants to say, good thing all I've got a decent record of young players, and I get a feeling the squad will be supplemented with a few youngsters to fill out our squad. I believe so. I feel like a lot of players will get the opportunity to do that. So yeah, hopefully that is the case. Peter says, are we taking Nunes back or what? On a free left wing chaos. We'll be speaking about Darwin Nunes very, very shortly. So yeah, we'll have that discussion very soon. I think you're right. It might be good to not go all in on a 19-year-old this season and get a guy like Bowen during his transition period and then go spend big next year. So it depends. So if we do get Bowen, I still feel like we need another right winger. So if we were to get a young profile like a Diomande, and it doesn't have to be Diomande, it could be another 19-year-old that's coming through. Can you imagine the pressure that player would be on if he was the only right winger that signed for us? So I don't think that would be fair. So I feel like signing a player like Bowen would be very smart business because you've got a player that can challenge for that right wing, but also cover for the striker role, which Bowen has flourished in the last few years for West Ham. You know, he's very clinical in front of goal. And if Isak's not not available, not in around the team, then you've got a player that can come in and be a striker for us as well until Ekitike is back, of course. So for me, I think Bowen would be smart business, but I still feel like we need to at least sign, including Bowen, 2 or 3 wingers. It's the minimum. I'll probably say 3, which sounds like I'm being greedy here, but there is a lot of gaps in the squad. Salah, Chiesa are leaving. Gakpo maybe potentially leaving. So those 2 players definitely gone. So we need to look into replacing those players as well. No, I mean, if we tell Leao to stay up like we did, we say, oh, okay. From a positional standpoint, we could do, but then I don't think it would depend who we have on the right wing. It would depend on that profile as well. Because if we have like an Akaluche or an Harvey Elliott that plays on the right wing, that gives you a better balance because then you've got players there that are more of the creator from the wing. Whereas Leao can stay further up and be the goal threat, if that makes sense. So that way you don't have to allow him to track back. But then in terms of the profile of our midfield, we need to make sure we've got a more defensive-minded left-sided centre mid playing there to cover his ground as well. So for me, I feel like we have to be smart on who we sign on the left wing. And they need to be they can't just be a one-trick pony. And that's not me trying to be disrespectful to any specific player here. But you need to have variation in your play. You need to be someone that can attack the byline, but also come inside as well. Because the way Irola likes to play with fullbacks, they bomb down the flanks continuously, both sides. So with that, you have to make sure that you got players that can go on the outside but can also go in the inside as well. So it's going to be interesting. I like Liao, but I don't know if he's the right fit for us in terms of how Irola wants to play. So it'll be interesting to see where we go. But also, you can't say the market out there is not good odds. Look at Brighton and Bournemouth. You just need to have good players to find those bargains. We don't have that, unfortunately. But the thing is, if you're a team like Liverpool, and that's not me being disrespectful to Brighton and Bournemouth, you're trying to sign the best players in the world. So I'm looking from that point of view where I'm trying to get the best talent that can come in and slot into the team right away. We don't always have to sign young hidden gems because that takes a bit of time for them to evolve. So for me, it's important to try and sign players that are ready made for the first team. I'm not saying go and just sign £100 million players. That's not my point here. I'm looking at it from a more profile perspective. There aren't great left wingers or right wingers in world football, in my opinion. You can tell me, oh, Minte is good, he's got decent talent, but is he going to produce the goals that Salah did? Because that is the conversation right there. We need someone to cover the ground and produce that same output that Salah did. We don't have that type of player. We need to find someone that can get close to that range, in my opinion. So yeah, for me, the market isn't good. I don't feel like in world football there are elite attackers anymore. There's only a few in between, in my opinion. But that's just my thoughts there. I mean that trio are such talented players. Yeah, they are talented players. To be fair, um, who would have thought Caicedo, Mitoma, João Pedro was good business? Give me those signs over Barca and Dimonde all day. But the thing is, they've gone to a team like Brighton where the pressure isn't high. The expectations aren't as high as Liverpool. It's not just signing these players and thinking it's going to work. We've probably signed players over the years that we thought are young potentials and can grow into becoming good players, and it hasn't worked. So, like a player like, let me think, who do we sign in that kind of profile? Like a Solanke. Solanke came. We thought maybe he can be a cover for the strikers and eventually be the leading man. It never worked out for him. He went over to Bournemouth, where there's less pressure, less expectation, really flourished. Went over to Tottenham, which is not a club that is on the up right now. But of course, there's still expectations from the fan base in terms of the style of play and them wanting to challenge for top four. And he hasn't really delivered in that way, if you get my drift. So that's the kind of levels you have to look at. Some players are well equipped mentally to play for a team like Liverpool. Some players aren't. It's not all down to talent. It is a mental game as well. So that's why I feel like we have to be smart. And look, those players you mentioned, we were linked with the likes of Caicedo over the years before he went to Brighton, but we decided that he wasn't ready. So it's a different kind of ball game as well. Costalicious says, mate, of course we can get at least. I've done a realistic career mode on FIFA with strict negotiation settings on and buying accepting it. Plus, Don is one of the greatest centre backs ever. Yeah, I hope you're enjoying your career mode because that's not going to happen in real life. Bo said, you do think football fans in general care more about name or hype odds? I really don't like that, to be fair. Give me bargains that no one had heard of over the years. For me, I don't really care about big names and I don't really care about hype as well. For me, it's important to sign the right profiles. We've been the best to do that over the years from when Jurgen Klopp signed players like a Gini Wijnaldum. Because when we signed him, for example, for Newcastle, he was a number 10 and also played on the left wing. At previous clubs, he was a right winger and a left winger. So, he never played as a number 6 or as a number 8, an enforcer in our midfield. But the key was the coach in terms of Jurgen Klopp. He saw skill sets that he thought that's what I need in the middle of the park. So for me, it's about coaching and getting the best out of the talent. That's the key here. It's not just signing big names for the sake of it. Of course, I do mention the likes of Barcola, but I feel like Barcola has that price tag because of where he is. He's at PSG. He's at a team that's won back-to-back Champions League, so the profile is high now. And he's 23 years of age. He's not a young player in that regards. That he's not up and coming. He's pretty much made a name for himself. So of course the price tag will be high. And plus, when any English club shows interest, they're going to add a few millions on top, aren't they? So for me, it's finding the right players, and that's why I'm intrigued in terms of who we're going to profile, uh, especially from Iraola's perspective, because it might just be where it will be players that we are not as familiar with in comparison to the bigger names that we've been linked with. But I'm all ears. For me, it's all about finding the right players that will fit the style of play that Irola wants. So yeah, hopefully we'll get those right players coming through in the summer. Um, what if a young player like Cairo Figueroa starts challenging Rio Ozzy? Figueroa's more of a striker though, so I don't really see him challenging Rio on the left wing. Um, but I think Rio is ahead of his years. So not every talent is going to be like that, in my opinion. He can play anywhere. Yeah, I know he can, but I see him more as a striker. I feel like he's more effective up top, to be fair. Unless you want to say it's a strange thing buying going after Rio, but not linked to Diomande. And so is he still young enough to convert? Yeah, he is, but I think they probably view him more as a right winger. And let's just paint a scenario that somehow Rumours do place that 150 million bid and Bayern accept it for Elise. Don't be surprised Diomande is the one that they want to replace Elise with. Because that's, I think, someone that they would regard as a natural replacement for the Frenchman. Boston like that 17-year-old we signed recently. Give me more of those. Are you referring to the centre back, Mortala Ndai? Yeah, he's cold. He's someone I mentioned when we signed him in January that I feel like don't be surprised if you see him next season. I'm very excited to see how he performs in pre-season. Left-footed centre back has been compared to Koulibaly in Senegal because that's where he's from. But what's great about his skill set is that left-footed centre back and has a great eye for the pass. Diagonal passes, progressive with the ball, forward thinking as a centre back in terms of distributing the ball. So he could be a player that we'll see, especially in the club games next season. I'm very much sure of that. He's been at Leicester for like 5 years. His dad, yeah, I know about his dad, former Wigan player. But yeah, he'll get his chance. I think we'll see him in the club games alongside Will Wright and those type of players as well. So yeah, we'll definitely see him. Brian Diaz might want to leave Real Madrid since he's not considered a starter. He could be a player that we look towards. So yeah, definitely a name on the list there, I would say. LFC Monster said front three of Rio, Isak, Diomande reverse behind them. Sounds good to me. The problems we're gonna get though is squad won't be big enough if first teamers get injured. Yeah, so we need to make sure we have the depth for those players that you mentioned there. But not only that, behind those players, we need to sign a number 6. If you're going to see the best of Florian Wirtz, you need to have a destroyer behind him that can clean up shop and allow Wirtz to go in full flow and influence the game. He needs that protection from the midfield as well as the defense. So that's why I feel like the number 6 profile is very, very important for us next season. Boss, give me Bowen over Diomande. Give me both. If I'm being honest, I want both players. Aklucci for the national team and against PSG has always looked very impressive to me. He's a player I really like. If Diomande is not for sale or his price is way too high for us, I truly believe, and this is not me having any sources, this is my inkling. I believe that Liverpool will target Aklucci as an alternative for that right wing position. And I like him. I think he's a fantastic player. He might not be as pacey and as electric as Diomande, but as long as you're effective on the wing, that's all that counts. You don't need to be a speed, a speedster on that right wing. You've got to be clever in your play as well. You got to be someone that understands the role, that can be effective with the ball when it comes to creating opportunities or finding half spaces and taking shots from distance. I feel like he's got the potential to be a really, really top player. No surprise that PSG are looking at him as well because that's a profile they want to add to their squad as well. Is the young Brazilian kid? I know we've been linked with young Brazil winger. So we got the Colombian kid. Yes, so we've signed the Colombian kid. I've forgotten his name now. I watched a few compilations and yeah, he looks decent. And when I was watching him, I was thinking to myself, it reminds me. I'm not trying to get ahead of myself, but it reminds me in terms of his running style, his dribbling style to Kaka. And then when I read an article about him after watching those compilations, that is literally what they call him in Colombia. They refer to him as the next Kaka. So we might have another gem on our team in the near future. And instead of Barcola, could Liverpool get Dembele? He could play right wing and number 9. Unfortunately, that ship has sailed. We tried to get him back in the day when Klopp was here. He was still at Ron's. Um, Unfortunately, never got that move. But now, yeah, he's pretty much settled at PSG. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the club where he ends up, staying until the retirement, if I'm being honest with you. He's found his home, I think, now. And look, I'm so pleased for him because he was a player that had unbelievable talent when he came through the ranks in France. Went over to Dortmund, you know, killed it over there as well. And then went for a big move to Barcelona. Didn't quite work out. Expectations was high. The fans didn't really warm to him for whatever reason. The players didn't seem to get along with him as well. Um, and I feel like he got quite disrespected during his time there. I saw a clip where someone burnt his shirt before he left for PSG, which is crazy to see from Barca fans. But hey, then again, you know, we see those antics unfortunately from certain fan base or certain sections of a fan base, I should say. But when he went over to PSG, killed it. Ballon d'Or winner, back-to-back Champions League title, league titles as well. He's definitely reformed again at PSG. So yeah, he's doing it, and it's good to see because I feel like he was such an unbelievable talent, and now he's fulfilled it. He is one of the best in the world right now. Um, the market is good. Also, in terms of young talent, yes, the market is always good for young talent, but I'm talking about the first team guys. I'm not gonna have an 18-year-old. Rio is an exception. I'm not gonna have 18-year-old just come in and be the right wing or the left winger. Like it has to be players that have played first team football. The names that we've mentioned, the Colombian kid and Brazilian winger, they're not players that have played first team in their home country. So we have to be, logical here. So I disagree. I don't think the market is great personally for a top level talent, in my opinion. That kid that looked decent in the highlights, yeah, he looked decent. To be fair, look at Robert Milner and Mateo worked well, didn't it? Yeah, but those were experienced players at the time. But you're not missing. You're missing the point here. Matic was in his 20s and was a great player at Schalke. Everyone knew about him in the Bundesliga. Milner, we all know what Milner brought to the table. So that was a smart signing for us on a free transfer. Robertson showed for me great ability at Hull City. Um, but that's what I'm saying to you. Like I don't think you understand what I'm trying to say here. It's finding the right profiles in terms of what we need for Iraola in terms of style of play. It's not just names. Like you're mentioning names, that it's not about names. It's about finding the right mix, the right blend. So if we're going to go for Diamonde, I don't care about the price tag at this stage. If that's the profile we want, someone that's ferocious on the wing, then that's the kind of profile we're going to go for. So we just have to be patient here, see what the club are mustering up in the background, but I do believe that the market isn't as great as it was a few years back. There aren't a wealth of right wingers out there. You can't tell me 10 right wingers that can come in and replace Salah in terms of goals and assists. There aren't many people out there. And that's the expectations. If you're just thinking, oh, we can sign someone on a free transfer, like free sign Harry Wilson, is Harry Wilson going to produce those numbers? No. But would he be a good squad player? Yes. I wouldn't mind Harry Wilson in that regards, but it can't be the guy that takes over Mohamed Salah's role in the team. He's not good enough for me in that scenario. So that's just where I'm looking at. I don't feel like the market is good, but hey, let's see. When you play Brighton or Bournemouth, people only see your highlights where you always look great. Yeah, but those clubs, there is low expectations there. So we just have to understand that, playing for Liverpool is not for everyone. Simon Perez has won his election at Madrid. Did he actually win it? Bloody hell. What day is it today? I thought it was going to be announced on Tuesday. But if he has won it, wow. Let's see if he does make that bid. It's going to be intriguing going forward. Um, what will happen to the likes of Jay and Danza? Will Wright get the usual chance over Peace and most probs? Hope one of them can help with the rotation up front. I think this would be my personal view. I think Jay and Dan's will be better off getting loaned out. I think he needs first team football at this age. He's picked up so many injuries in the last couple of years. He's not getting enough game time. So if he's fully fit now, I think the best thing for his development is to play week in, week out. whether it's for a Premier League team or a championship team, I think that will make perfect sense for him, and then he can always come back on his return. Will Wright, I think he will be in and around the squad. I think he will be given opportunities throughout the season, especially with no Ekitike. And I feel like he can be a player that could be on the bench. He could play cup games. I do feel like he's got the talent to really have an impression in the team. I'm not saying he's a starter or anything of that nature, but a player that can come here and there and contribute to the team when needed. So yeah, I think he'll get some opportunities this season as well. PS is the fans have strong opinions on players they have never seen in the most part is who's the hype the most. I disagree. The players that I've mentioned on my show, there are players that I watched. Barcola, I've watched numerous times for the last couple of years. Diomande, I've watched him a bit more this season. Um, a few live games, not a lot, if I'm being honest with you, but I feel like I've watched enough football to know if I know it's a good player or not. So yeah, that would be my take on that. Uh, Alex Scott Rumours getting stronger. We'll be speaking about Alex Scott very, very soon. None of those fans watch games or look at why Scout analyze them. Thing is, why Scout is just stats, isn't it? I don't watch football based on stats. I watch them based on the eye test. For me, I have enough knowledge, enough understanding to know what a good player looks like and how they would transform to our team if they can replicate that type of form to our team, or if they're suited in terms of our style of play. So that's the way I would look at it going forward. The Awakened Phoenixes, apparently they are very keen on Mateus Fernandez Pardo, left winger from Lille. That name does ring a bell. I feel like I have seen reports of him as well. Um, but if I'm being brutally honest, I haven't seen many live games of him this season. So that's someone definitely I'm gonna have to do my research on. But yeah, it's a name that I have seen roaming around in the last few weeks. Give me Nusa and Bowen as wingers. That's enough. I don't think Nusa and Bowen's enough. So that would be Nusa, Rio, and then Bowen. And who else is the backup right winger? That's not enough. We need three players. Chiesa is definitely leaving. So for me, you can't say three attackers in two positions is enough. No, I think that would be crazy if we were to start the season like that. Whereas the thing about this summer, we have to wait till the World Cup is over to get the signings in. All the nations they play get kicked out. Yep, that's true as well. Uh, hope we don't make the same mistake as signing a player that played during the World Cup, like El Hadji did in 2002. So in regards to El Hadji Diouf, because I remember that period quite well, we didn't just sign him based on that. We had agreed a deal before the World Cup had even started. So we were scouting him quite heavily beforehand. He had a prominent campaign for Senegal in AFCON, and I think that year he was named African Player of the Season. So it was based on what he showed for Senegal at international level before the World Cup, but also for his team, which was Lens in Ligue 1. So it wasn't just based on the World Cup. It was scouting from before. But having said all of that, it was still a big mistake that we went for him. For me, I wanted us to sign Nicolas Anelka. Came for a loan spell from PSG. We're talking about PSG today, and he was phenomenal. One of my dream signings at the time because I was so impressed in terms of how he played for Arsenal. And I always thought, if I could name a dream signing from the Premier League, it'd have to be Anelka. We had him for a few months. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out. So one of the moves that I kind of wished it became permanent, but unfortunately, it didn't. Most of the fans hyping on Diomande on X haven't watched a full game of Leipzig. Yeah, possibly, but of course we're gonna get to see him now. Playing for Ivory Coast, he had a decent game against France a couple of days ago, so we'll get to see some of these players in the coming weeks. So yeah, I'm sure we'll be glued onto our screens, wanting to see the players that we've been linked to and see how good they are. Anything wants to, is it Kamara or Sangare both in France? We've been linked to for the number 6. No, so Sangare plays for Mali, so he's not a French international. I don't think Lamine Kamara has been selected for the French national team, so I don't think it's either player. Um, but Oz, don't you care about prize on players? Would it be okay if we sign Diomande? No, I don't want us to sign Diomande for 130 million. Um, every player has a valuation, so I feel like that is not the right valuation for Diomande. If we're spending 130 million pounds on a winger, for me, it has to be someone that is levels above Diomande. That is, one of the best in the world. And for me, that's Elise. So that would be the kind of money I would spend on Elise, not a Diamonde. It is too much of a gamble to spend that kind of money on a young up and coming player like that. But having said that, it's a player that the club have scouted quite a bit. It just depends on what deal they feel like is the right valuation for the player. I think they're trying to aim for about 70, 80 million, which is still high. I think we're paying over the odds for that kind of range. But unfortunately, you have to go with the market as well. We can't just be like, oh, because we signed Robertson for 8 million, I want to sign 8 million players. It doesn't work like that. You have to evolve with the times. And those players that would have been 8 million 10 years ago are now 20 million pound players. It's just the rate. Cost of living is high, as you all know. So that's how the world works. It doesn't, the prices and valuation doesn't stick like that. You have to evolve with the times. And that's what it is right now in football terms as well. Peter says the dead men at LFC need to earn their crust and come up with some rough diamonds. Only the spine of the team needs to big buys. Yeah. So in terms of the spine, I would say if, eh, a midfielder for me, a right back, a right winger would be the four positions that need to be strengthened. And then other positions after that, they could be young and up and coming players. I don't mind that. Um, it's just you have to find the right profile and the right mix, the right balance in the team as well. Because you don't want to have a squad full of young players as well. You need to have experienced players that will guide these players going forward, that know what it takes to win for a team like Liverpool or win, trophies elsewhere, especially if you bought them from different clubs. So that's important. You've got to find the right balance within the squad. Excuse me. Obviously, the prices are insane these days. People from 30 years ago wouldn't believe how fair things are. Yeah, it's ludicrous in terms of the prices. And I don't agree with those prices because none of these players, in my opinion, are the right valuation in terms of their transfer fee. They're not. They're really not. But it's just the market, unfortunately. So we just have to accept that going forward. Now I'm an older fan. I don't know every player in the world. I just put my trust into the recruitment team and get things right. I hear you. Like for example, when you hear names like Barcola and Diamonde, we've been linked with Diamonde all season, so that's why I've taken time to watch a few games. I'm not saying I've watched Leipzig all week because I don't really have the time for stuff like that. But if there is a game here and there in the weekend, I try and catch up with it. And the same Barcola with PSG, playing great football all season. Um, but of course, there'll be other players that someone mentioned the Lille winger. I haven't watched Lille that much this season, so I wouldn't really know too much about him. And I'm not gonna lie, just to seem like I know it all as well. But yeah, hey, so there will be players where it would give me some satisfaction if it's a player we've never heard of, but then when we watch him in terms of compilations, you're like, wow, this is the guy that could really take us forward. So I don't mind those type of signings, but I need it to be, presented to us. At the minute, we're just, we're guessing who we're going to sign here and there. As long as the right profiles, that's what counts for me going forward. Um, also, it's not insane. Ozan, look for someone. There are millions of players out there. Yeah, but not everyone can play for Liverpool. Let's not be silly here. Not everyone is built to play for Liverpool. And I'm not just saying it because we're Liverpool fans here. Not everyone's built for this. Let's be honest. Yuri's future is still unclear. Him and Rio on the left would be talented depth. I didn't realize his future was. He signed a big contract with them a few months back. So if he is leaving, then it's going to be a big transfer fee. And I don't know if I would sign. I do like you this, but then I'd rather just give Rio an opportunity going forward, if that makes sense. Because then you've got two players. I know Yuri's a bit older. Um, although Yildiz can cover for Florian Wirtz as well in that number 10 role. So look, if he is available, definitely want to look for, I would say. Well, I'm not saying young player, I'm saying bargain and underpriced players that can be 17 and that can be a 30-year-old. Yeah. I'm tired of being linked to Barclay one day. I know those are the two names that we're hearing continuously, but there is, truth behind those names in terms of us scouting them quite heavily. And there is definitely concrete interest in signing those players. So if we were able to get the business done correctly, you will probably see both of the players come through. And if they do, I don't think we can have any qualms about it because they are quality players, and that's what I want to see in the squad going forward. Here's the quality is tight, but that doesn't stop everyone saying £100 million for anyone who can kick a ball. Yeah, unfortunately, especially in the Premier League, if you're a decent midfielder, 100 million is your price tag because of Declan Rice joining Arsenal. I'm not saying Declan Rice is poor midfielder, by the way, but when the benchmark has been set and you are a good midfielder, that is the price range that clubs look at. For example, Mateus Fernandez is available for about £80 million, but they've only given that price tag because of his impact at West Ham, even though they got relegated. But they're also saying that look, he's not that far from Declan Rice, so a parameter ends up being presented, and then that's probably why players have been linked with that kind of price range, which yeah, I don't agree with personally. No, mate, you were not included in the most part of fans not watching players. Oh no, it's all good. It's all good. And look, I'll be honest with you guys. If there's certain players that I watch, it's because we've been linked to them quite a bit. Um, but I'll be honest with you guys. I don't I don't just watch random football all over the world. For me, if we're linked to a player, then I'm intrigued by that player. I will try and watch full games and then see what they're about. So if I have an opinion on Barcola and Diamonde, it's because I've watched him quite a few times. Um, might not be enough to some, but for me, I always feel like you don't need to watch a player too many times to know if they're a good player or not. Um, but yeah, let's see. Who I am excited because we've got a new coach now, so he will have new ideas. He'll have profiles. He might have had players in mind for Bournemouth that he ends up signing for Liverpool instead, and they could be the underrated or those hidden gems that Bo was referring to earlier on. So who knows? And I'll be all for it because look at the player that they signed from Brazil, Rayan. He's killing it. He's only been there for 6 months and he's looking like a world beater already. So yeah, if we sign those type of players, I'm all for it. But because I don't watch Brazilian football, I don't know how many gems are out there, if that makes sense. But yeah, let's see. Let's see what happens. Bowen said Bowen and Abe with Sobo, who can also play there. Oh, it's too soon for Abe to be in the first team mix. I can't have Abe as a backup right now. I would say this season is the season where we transition him, we introduce him to the first team squad in terms of training, getting to play a few Carabao Cup games here and there. And then next summer, 2027, is where he can be in and around the team, like Rio was last season, if that makes sense. Let's not put too much pressure on the kid. I'm not saying the talent isn't deserving. I feel like, talent isn't everything. There is a mental side of football as well. I just don't feel like we should put too much pressure on the young player. But having said that, I do have faith in Irola to get Abe involved in some capacity, um, but also give him time to develop and learn his trade as well. Could Dave Brooks be something else as writing a nose Irola? Um, Dave Brooks is decent player. I just don't think he's Liverpool quality. So for me, no, that wouldn't be an option. I quite like him to be. He's a good player, not for me though, not for me. Martin, we got Martin said, where will Salah go to play what club? It still hasn't been revealed, has it? So we'll probably find out. I'm assuming either next week or after the World Cup because that is what he said. He'll say either present before the World Cup or it'll be after. It won't be during. Um, I still believe he goes to Saudi. I might be a minority here because a lot of fans assume that he will stay in Europe. He could go to Serie A. He could go to Fenerbahce in the Turkish league. There's links with him to uh, MLS. I think it was San Diego. There was a team that was linked to him as well. I feel like he'll go over to Saudi, but I could be wrong. So let's see where he ends up going. No one knows yet. He's only had one season. Yeah, that's true. That's why I do feel like it is a gamble. Um, he's just had one real season. So yeah, it is a gamble. But I think because he's shown such a high ceiling, people thinking, he could be the next one. And, you know, only time will tell. Do a swap deal with Cody Gakpo. Um, with Barcola or who's the swap deal involving? I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Whatever swap deal is, I'm all for it. Do you see the Lovren interview, Oz? No, I haven't seen. Is this a recent interview? What did Lovren say? Uh, New second choice keeper too. If Mamadashvili leaves, then yeah, that could be a possibility, but I don't know if he's leaving or not. If you pick from the very best, you only have three choices. There's 100 players out there. Um, like that Leone did us, that showed we have done our work. With Diomande, it just feels lazy, signing because of hype and name. But the thing is, he has hype in Italy. It's just that we're not from there. So he had a lot of hype in Italy as well. Um, they were actually very surprised that he accepted a move to Liverpool. A lot of the Italian experts assumed that he was joining Inter Milan. That was the one club that they thought he's destined to join because they showed a lot of interest and they needed refreshing. They needed younger players, younger profiles in their squad. Um, so we did our homework in that regard, like we did with Jacquet. You know, those two centre backs in the last 12 months, I'll say the last 24 months even, they're the ones that have had very good stats. And they're the ones that keep growing as time is going on. And we've got both of them in our club now. So look, I feel like we've done our work there with Diomande. Look, I know the fee's high, but they've probably done their homework with him as well. So it's not just because he's a trendy name. He's a trendy name because we've been linked with him for about a year. That's how I've come across Diomande. So not many clubs are linked with him. So there's a reason why Liverpool want him because we need to replace him with Mohamed Salah. James Trafford of Man City is a good backup goalkeeper. He's a good goalkeeper. I'll agree with you on that one. But I think with Trafford, he will want to play first team football because he's good enough to do that. Unfortunately, when he joined Man City last summer, he was probably told that he was number one, and then all of a sudden they had the opportunity to sign Donnarumma because of his issues at PSG. Contract talks were stalled, so they took up on the saying he's only about 20, 25 million as well. So in that price range, you have to sign one of the best keepers out there, isn't it? So yeah, I think Trafford would be a good number two, but I don't think he'll come to Liverpool as a number two. If he is to leave, he will uh, move to a club where he's first choice. If he stays at Man City, he will fight for his spot, but I don't think he will definitely move to another club to be a number two. I don't think that's an option. Ozzy, were you 42, 30 years ago? No. Um, buy young players from 1925 or 26 only. Yeah, that is normally our philosophy in terms of signing new players, that kind of price range, or that should I say age profile. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by that to be fair. Um, but having said that, I still feel like you gotta sign experienced players um at times to get the right balance in the squad. So for me, Bowen plus a player between 19 25 makes sense in that scenario as well. But also we have an academy. Also, everyone there is free. No need to complain about high fees when it's a choice to use it. But Bo, they're not ready for the first team. You can't just throw 16, 14, 15, 16-year-olds into men's professional game. You have to let them develop. You can't ruin people's careers like that. That would be suicidal if you just throw players for the sake of it because they're free. That's not how it works. You have to take time with these players. So for me, it's not the way to go forward. Look at Bilbao. Yeah, it worked well, but those players were given time to develop, and then they were brought into the first team. If that makes sense, you can't just throw players at 15 years of age and expect them to be world beaters all of a sudden. When they're touching when they're touching 17, 18, if they're exceptional talents, they'll make the first team straight away. If they're not, they'll be given their time to learn their craft and then be added to the first team squad. So it's about finding the right balance, but also timing as well. Timing is key in terms of introducing those players to the first team squad. Double D, big up Double D, said World Cup is probably good for the youngsters to impress Irola, to save us some money. Yeah, it's a great opportunity for the young players in terms of the youth players coming up. It's good for some of the squad players as well as players that have come from loan, like and Harvey Elliott, for example. So everyone's given a clean slate to present an impression on the new coach. So that is the positive that I would say that they're given an opportunity to showcase their talents there. When was the last time Bilbao won UCL or even La Liga? Yeah, that's the point there. Master, who wins the World Cup? Dark horse, flop top goal scorer, and name the finals. Um, in terms of the final, I don't know what to name because I have to look at the structure. But in terms of the winners, I'm going for France, and I know a lot of fans are thinking, France might not do it. They lost to Ivory Coast the other day. I'm still rooting for France to win the World Cup. Um, in terms of the dark horse, I think a dark horse could be Portugal. I think they can have a huge impact going forward, and they could really surprise everyone. Top goal scorer. Oh, who would be top goal scorer? Um, I'll give you a lazy answer. I'll just say Mbappe because I'm thinking there aren't many strikers. Do you know what? Isak could have a shout. The way he scored a goal the other day. Who knows? He could have an impression in the World Cup as well. Well, I think we got Abe to sign Udo because he will be given a pathway. I think only one right going at this signing and him as a backup. Only time will tell if that's the case. I think there is a pathway. I definitely agree with you on that one, which is what made him sign for the club. But then again, they probably used Ngumoha as the example in that scenario. So maybe, he has been given a shirt number, number 40. So he's a squad player now. Um, it could be the case. But then if it's Jared Bowen and then Josh Abe as backup, I would find that a bit underwhelming. I feel like that would be, let's say Jared Bowen picks up injury and, I'm not wishing that on anyone, but to put Josh Abe as the right winger, not the right call, in my opinion. The aim of a good team is to create something that's bigger than its parts. Not everyone has to be a worldie. Agreed. It's not about signing world class players in every position. Real Madrid, had Galacticos, but of course, in due course, it didn't really work out, did it? So yeah, I agree. You got to find the right balance. England flops. England flop. Spain winners. Spain's a good shout. That would have been my second choice, but yeah, Spain's a good shout. Um, Top scorer, dark horse. Ivory Coast is a good shot actually. They were really impressive against France. So yeah, some good picks there. Picking the Netherlands to win it all. From Oz and there. Interesting. Interesting. Chibuki says, Ozzy, my question, what has Liverpool scouts doing? Did they spend 1 year scouting Barcola, Dimonde and Wharton? Now all of them are over 110 million. They should go back to previous scouting. No, they've been scouting these players for a long time. They don't just start scouting, but they probably feel like they're the best suited players for our positions. But in terms of Wharton, I don't even know if he would be a great fit for us. I think he's very talented. Um, I would have thought Slot would have gone for him a bit more because of his sort of um, ball possession way of playing football. But I think under this new style of play, I don't think Wharton's the right profile. It has to be a Fabinho type midfielder for me, and then alongside him a box to box, like I suppose like who would be in our team right now. So that's the way I would look at it. But yeah, let's see what happens in terms of our future targets. Bosses, I'm not saying that I'm saying use a little more of the academy, give them a pathway, no scouts in the squad. Next thing for me, that's not good enough. But the thing is, look at other clubs around us in terms of the top teams. Are they giving pathways to young players like that? No. So you should, I would say, at least give Liverpool a bit of credit that we do give pathways to young players like we have done over the years. Just look at that cup final we won with the kids under your club a few years back. So, we do give opportunities to our young players. We're probably one of the few clubs that does when it comes to top clubs in the country and in Europe as well. Um, and which is why young talent are coming over to Liverpool. Rio Ngumoha came over to Liverpool because one, he's a boyhood red. Number two, he knows there's a pathway to the first team as well. Same with Josh Abe. There's no reason why he rejected that 50K a week salary. It's because he knew there is a pathway here. So, we are a club that young players understand and realize there is a chance when we come to Liverpool that we can make it in the first team if we work hard and if we develop the right way. So they know there's an opportunity. If you got Chelsea, they've got 60 players on the books. How are they going to get opportunity? You can only play 11 players from the start. So they know chances are slim at clubs like Chelsea, but at Liverpool, you will be given opportunity if it's deserved. Wayne says, I think Spain or France. Yeah, I think those two are the popular choices, I think. Our scouts during young Klopp worked so hard, scouted Salah that had failed in Premier League with Chelsea, Scout Fabinho, who no one knew Fabinho. No, I disagree with all of that. Everyone knew Salah. Everyone knew Salah. We were very close to signing Salah from FC Basel before he joined Chelsea. So it wasn't that we scouted him and then got him there. Yes, we scouted him, but we were fully aware of him beforehand. So I disagree with that one. Fabinho, everyone knows Fabinho. Look, maybe I'm being a bit silly here. I knew Fabinho, and I was like very surprised that we signed him, only because I didn't think he was a target or a realistic target for us. At that time, it sounded like he was off to PSG, coming from Monaco to PSG. So I was over the moon that we signed him. I thought he was the perfect DM for us. Robertson, watched him at Hull City, and I thought he'd got a decent cross on him. But with Linton, I was like, great sort of skill sets in terms of his ability, but can he transition to the heights of Liverpool? That's always the key there. But thankfully, he did. So yeah, that's always the question that you have to ask. Will Liverpool keep him or go to Juventus? Is that regards to who's that regards to? Is that Chiesa that you're referring to? I don't think they'll keep Chiesa. I think Chiesa will go back to Syria. I don't think he'll go back to Juventus. He might go to a different club. In my day, the 80s, everyone was a decent player. My senior school had a Liverpool first team player. A lad off our park played for QPR, and a lad in my year at school. That's pretty cool. Played for Tranmere. Computer on the streets. You know what? That is a fair point. I'm gonna sound like I'm gonna show my age a bit more. But yeah, back in my day, like used to play football every day on the streets, like without hesitation. Literally as soon as it got dark, that's when I'd go home. I'd play football day and night. Um, that's not the culture anymore for whatever reason. Of course, society changes. Things change. In those type of areas, maybe it's not as safe as it was when I was growing up. But yeah, you don't really get that kind of street football culture anymore, which is a bit of a shame. How come did our scouts spend one full year scouting elite players? Get Akaluche, get Zabani from PSG, get some guy. As it stands, I will take Nunes for free as Ekatike is injured. Um, they don't just scout elite players; they scout players of all caliber. So last season, of course, we signed good elite players, however you want to label it, and they've done their homework this year as well. So only time will tell in terms of who we get. The names you mentioned could be players that we sign, or it could be completely different names. So only time will tell in terms of what they've done in the last 12 months. But you can't say the scouts haven't done anything because we haven't signed anyone yet. So we'll have to wait and see what the outcome is this summer. Jan Diomande plays for Ivory Coast. Yeah, that's the player we've been talking about today. And people need to understand that there are more scouts out there that are good enough to play for Liverpool. I can't answer that question, to be honest with you, because if they're good enough, they would have been given an opportunity. I know that's a very standard sort of answer there. If you're good enough, you should be involved in that kind of mix. There are a lot of scousers coming through the ranks, and if they make it, amazing, because it's deserved. But not just because you're a scouser, you deserve to just play for Liverpool straight away. That doesn't make sense. That's not how it works. It's not how football works. So it's about talent, not just where you're from as well. Um, Kids don't live and breathe football like they did. Too many distractions. It's true. I feel like kids don't even watch full football matches anymore. It's just highlights and shorts here and there. They don't actually watch football. They don't really digest, what tactics have been deployed and stuff. So yeah, it's a big thing. Who's your pick for the World Cup? I said France. That would be my pick, but Spain's a good shout as well. I think I've mentioned previously. Jabrika says, "Get me Akaluchi for 40 million." We won't pay for it. I think they want 50 million, so that'll be the price range there. Diomande at 75. I think that's what the club want to agree in terms of the transfer fee. Whether Leipzig agree on that, that's another scenario. So guy for 35, yeah. I think 35, 40 is about the right range there. Zabani at 50, get a right back. But who's your right back? You gotta give me a name now. Come on. Bring Nunes back. We'll speak about Nunes. He's definitely on the agenda today. Mine said, will Ronaldo, Messi, and Kane shine at the World Cup? I think so. I think Kane will for England. Messi, I'm not too sure, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of pressure for him to deliver. 'Cause I feel like Obviously, it's a bit of an aging team at the minute. And Ronaldo will do well. But I think out of the three, I think Kane will shine the most, if I'm being honest with you. Excuse me. I'm not saying 40, 50, 16-year-olds. I'm saying like a Wright, Murray Home, Sonny Lambie, Stevenson. Stevenson's been sold, so he's going. I've forgotten the club number. He's leaving for about 700K. So he's out the window. 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, but those players aren't academy players. They're play for the under 21s. You said academy. That's two different things there. So when you say academy, I'm thinking the young kids. And then the next step for them is under 21s, where it's a mixture of men's slash youth football because they have to play against other teams across the Premier League. And the rule is that, you can have players over the age of under 21s. So if there's a player that's 23, he can actually play in that game as well. So yeah, for me, two different settings there in terms of the players that you mentioned. KBSD kicked the ball everywhere he went. Yeah, I think we all did at that age, to be fair. Imagine in our attack, we have Isak, Rio, Gakpo, Nunes, Akuluche, and Diamonde. You think we'll get Akuluche and Diamonde? I don't think that's going to happen. As amazing as that sounds, that's not happening. In midfield, I take Szoboszlai, Grunberg, Wirtz, McAllister, Sungar, and Elliott. Um, Personally, I don't think Sangara is enough. I feel like, and I don't want to see McAllister there next season, but that's just my take. Get Pacho or PSG to replace Van Dijk for next season. They're not going to sell Pacho. We should have signed Pacho before he went over to PSG. We were very strongly linked with him. Um, Unfortunately, PSG has got a step ahead of us. The youth don't get how it connects. That's why the droppers. Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Everyone not named Bradley, Jean Manuel, Slimo, Ado Bakola is underwhelming for Aussie. Maybe so. It's not about signing world class players, but every player we're linked with are world class with high fees. I don't think the players we're linked to are world class. Like Barcola, I don't think is world class yet. Diomande he's got a high ceiling, but he's not world class. We're not actually linked with anyone that's world class. Elise was the only one for me that I would regard as world class, but there's no way we're getting Elise. Let's be honest now. Look back in the day, 50s, 60s, 70s, every team had 30% local players. Very sad what's happening. Yeah, but time, come on. Bro, I was in around in the 50s, 60s, 70s, or, whatever era you're talking about. Times have changed, since the Premier League became global from the early 90s. You're attracting more international viewers, and because of that, you are appealing to different audiences. And because you're appealing to different audiences, international players are wanting to come to the Premier League because it's the new league. There's a lot of buzz around the Premier League in terms of what it was in the early 90s. That's why you saw a lot of foreigners come over. So you can't say, you wanted to go back to those days because if we didn't have foreign players come through, we're not going to see elite football, in my opinion. So we have to appreciate these foreign players that have come through over the years that have made the league better. Foreign coaches that have given us these amazing moments. Jurgen Klopp wouldn't be here if that was the philosophy that was embedded in this day and age. So you have to evolve with the times. And look, I'm not against it to what's happening right now, but I'm also assessing the market where I don't feel like there's good players out there. But that's just maybe me being a bit nostalgic because I grew up in an era where if you wanted to buy a striker, you could give me 50 names and they were like top strikers. We don't really have that kind of level of players in abundance anymore, in my opinion. But that's probably just me acting my age there, I guess. Um, 2000, the kids in the cup final were forced. Yes, they were forced, but it was just the way he managed those players that he gave them the freedom to play and express themselves. They didn't feel under pressure in that moment, if that makes sense. So yeah, it was a situation where they had to do it because of injuries. But what it showed me that Klopp was not afraid to put the youngsters in because with Slot, I can imagine him just putting people in different positions and messing things around. That's how he would do it. So yeah, for me, it comes from the coach, and I feel like he really embodied the young players and really wanted to give them the opportunity to make a stake in the team. So it was a good moment for those players in that short period of time. And the club we gave you chances. Yeah, agree. I totally agree with that. Stop wouldn't sub them in. Yeah, he wouldn't. I agree with that one as well. Used to be able to hear the Scouse accent in the crowd. Yeah, but look, I think this is a conversation where some will agree and some will disagree. I'm not Scouse, so if that was the the requirements, then I'm not on the screen anymore because in that dialogue, then I can't really talk about Liverpool because I'm not a Scouser. Um, so we just have to accept, because the game is so much bigger than it was in the 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever you're referring to earlier on, that you're going to attract a different audiences now. There's nothing wrong with people coming from different parts of the world to watch Liverpool at Anfield. I think that's a beautiful thing personally, because it shows that football is not just a sport; it's bigger than that. People spending hard and money to come from different parts of the world to watch Liverpool, or whether they're visiting the city. You have to just appreciate that as well. That they've come over to Liverpool and they wanted to spend their hard money to experience Anfield, experience the city, experience the people of Liverpool. So I don't think that's a bad thing as such. That would be the way I would look at it going forward. How many goals will Isak get at the World Cup if he stays fit? I'll go for 5. I'd say 6. I'll top you on that one. I think he'll get 6 goals. Um, Ozzy was following Mo Salah at Y Scout from the way back in his Al Makloun days, innit? No. But do you know what? Okay. I was aware of him when he was playing for Al Makloun. Um, but I hadn't watched him. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even know how I can watch Egyptian football to be fair. But at that time I didn't have the access of those type of channels. But when he was at FC Basel, that's when he really made a name for himself because he scored a few Champions League goals. In fact, his first Champions League goal was against Chelsea, playing for FC Basel. And FC Basel has some top players. I remember they had this Swiss player. He was Turkish. Hakan Yakin, I think that was his name, or something along those lines. And he was a baller for FC Basel. So yeah, they had some decent play, and he was one of the players that was really good as well. So yeah, that's how I knew about him. To be fair. Um, will you watch the late football matches at the World Cup? I do plan on doing watch alongs. I was looking at some of the fixtures here. Some of the matches are late, aren't they? I will try my best. I can't promise I'll say I'll do a watch along every day. There will be some games where I'm thinking, what am I doing here? I mean, the second match is Canada and Bosnia. I don't know if that's going to be a possibility if I'm being honest with you, but I will try. In terms of the late matches, I know for example, the Brazil Morocco game is at 11 p.m. on a Saturday, so that might be one that I'll do in terms of watch alongs. So yeah, best thing to do is hit that notification bell, so you know what time or what shows I'll be doing on the day. In terms of during the World Cup, I still plan on doing local content. So if there is any transfer news or any breaking news in regards to player recruitment or anything around the club, I still plan on doing local shows. But I think the majority of the theme will be live World Cup watch alongs as well. So yeah, hopefully you guys can come on and tune in and feel free to get in the chat. It doesn't have to be about the game. We can talk football, we can talk Liverpool, whatever you want to talk about, we can do it in a live chat together as well. uh Peter, we need to have identity on the pitch. We don't have that anymore. In terms of, are you referring to like style of play and stuff? Yeah, I'm hoping Iraola can bring that going forward. Everyone that don't know Dimonte will join the Aussie. I don't think there's any guarantee he'll join. I don't know. I I was asked a question the other day. I have an inkling he might stay at Leipzig. I don't think he'll move this summer, but that's just my take on that. Would you take Tony? Uh, Tony, who's Tony of Newcastle? Tonali is what you mean. I'm assuming, right? Okay. In the midfield, if they saw McAllister, yeah, I like Tonali. I think Tonali is an upgrade on McAllister. He's more tenacious, but he's a good ball player as well. So yeah, I would take Tonali ahead of McAllister for sure. Um, Let me go through some of the comments and then we'll talk on the next topics. A lot of people getting a chance, those people with a lot of talents, but ignored by a manager or club. It happens every time. That is true. I still haven't we heard of players getting released by clubs in their younger age, but then breaking through later. You can't ignore that. Ozzy. No, look at Izzy. Izzy had to go through different clubs in order for him to achieve his dream, which was to play for his boyhood club. He actually got released early in his career, but there. So, um, but yeah, I hear that in terms of players being released, but also having an impact going forward. You should always have some people in the squad that knows the club and the city inside. Do you really think, do you really don't think that's important, Oz? Um, of course, it's ideal that you have homegrown players, you have players from the city, you have scousers, but only if they're good enough. They can't just be in the squad because they're scousers. That doesn't make sense to me. They have to be good enough. That's why I've been a strong advocate of Curtis Jones staying, not just because he's a scouser. I think he's improving as season's going on. So yeah, you have to be good enough. It can't just be, you know, because they're scouser, they should be in the team. Liverpool are one big family. You don't have to be a scouser. Yeah, I agree with that. Uh, some stupid comments here. Definitely got to proofread my comments. I've had some weird ones over the last few weeks. Van Dijk comments really do confirm what we all thought about Slot must have been a nightmare in the dressing room. Yeah, I agree with that one. The Hughes to Saudi tour, yeah, is back again. Any truth this time round? We'll speak about that. I feel like they might be, but we'll speak about it in due course. Okay, let me go on to the next topic. Is Yandy Monde. I'm not going to speak about it too much because I feel like we've already spoken about it quite heavily. The current situation is that there's growing expectation that he ends up at Liverpool. However, nothing's set in stone. It's just that Liverpool in a hurry to get the deal done before the World Cup. I don't think it's going to happen. You know, if that deal of that magnitude gets done by next week, that's a miracle. Or that's been something in the works that's been signed and sealed a long time ago. I don't think it's going to happen. If there is any progression, it'll be after the World Cup. I don't think he will end up signing for us, if I'm being honest with you. Um, let's move on and speak about Scouser in Curtis Jones. Um, the Inter director, Pierre Sulio, said it's no secret we're following Curtis Jones. He's a player we like. We're not hiding. We will see the development. So that basically just tells me that they like the player, but they also have a valuation and they don't want to go above and beyond that. So I believe they were willing to spend around 25 million pounds. Liverpool think that's not enough. They want 30 to 35 million pounds. So hopefully, you know, my personal point of view, I don't want the deal to go through. But if Jones is adamant on leaving, which, you know, if you speak to Federico Chiesa, he said that Jones has asked him about the lifestyle in Italy in terms of what to expect here and there. So that sounds like Curtis Jones is very much seriously thinking about leaving the club. I just hope Iraola has an opportunity to speak to him before he makes that decision. Because if Iraola has the ultimate faith or would like to utilize Curtis Jones next season, then I think he made the U-turn and stay. However, if Curtis Jones is adamant on leaving and saying that, look, I'm not getting first team football here, I want to be playing week in, week out, and I can do that into Milan, then, you know, it, if that's what he wants to do, you know, he doesn't, you know, leave on bad terms, in my opinion. I think he gets our blessings. Because whenever he has played for Liverpool, he's always played with full heart, full commitment, and that's all you want from your players when they step up for Liverpool. So for me, it wouldn't be a bad thing going forward. And speaking of Chiesa, you know, he's pretty much voiced his frustration as well about his current situation, saying that, you know, he wants to play regularly. He never got the opportunity to play regular games in the Premier League. First year, he said he didn't practically play, but that's also because he was injured quite a bit. So he plans on going to the tour in the USA, which is, of course, taking place in a few weeks. And he'll talk to the club and the new coach, Iraola, and he'll see what lies ahead. So for me, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I fully expect him to leave. I don't think Iraola will have Chiesa as part of his plans. I don't think he'll fit the intensity of Iraola's style of play. So I think the best scenario would be for him to part ways and possibly return to Syria, which I feel like he will find a club there in due course. Just gonna go through some of the comments and then we'll move on. Let's see where the comments, because I see a lot of you chatting to each other, so I don't want to bring those comments up. Diamonde will join. Same with Wharton. So lazy recruitment. I don't know what it is. If those are the players we're getting, why is it lazy recruitment? what if these players come in and completely cook in terms of how they play? Are we not going to be happy about that? Look, I want the best players at Liverpool. So if they are the best players available and they feel like they're the best players that fit our style of play, I wouldn't call that lazy recruitment. It's just they went for quality players. That's what it looks like to me. Um, let's have a look. Will you be doing watch along of the preseason games? Yes. Let's have a look at the fixtures. Actually, I'm sure they'll. I'm not. I'm sure not all of them would have been announced now, but let's see what. But yes, I do plan on doing it. Um, so the first one listed is against Sunderland. So that will be 11 p.m. UK time. So yeah, I'll definitely do that. The next one is 12:30 um, on July the 1st. So I'm assuming that's at the States as well. So yeah, I know it's late, but if you guys are available, so make sure to tune in. I think I'll do that one as well. Then we've got Leeds United 2nd of August, and we've got Monaco, and then we've got Como as well. Oh, that's an interesting fixture. Um, we'll get to play against Fabregas and his team there in terms of the tactics that he's going to deploy. So that would be quite intriguing. The Premier League fixtures haven't been announced yet, have they? So that would be interesting to see who we face um, in the opening fixtures. But yeah, looking forward to that being announced, which will be, I think, will be some at some point next couple of weeks. So yeah, hopefully we'll get that announcement soon, so we know who we'll be signing up against. Boss says, I really like Roll Oz. Yeah, I'm glad you do as well because for me, I feel like he's the right fit for what we want going forward. So yeah, I'm very pleased about him as well. Mike said, I don't want Walter in my opinion. He's quality bet. I see him the same way I see McAllister. Quality potential is there on the ball, but especially if Sobo starting as an 8, we need a serious defensive 6. I agree with you, Mike. I think you're spot on. In terms of talent, he's a very talented player. In terms of his passing, he's got something we might not be able to offer with our current crop of players. But that's not the profile we need right now. We need a number 6. We need an out-and-out number 6. That's the type of player I feel like we need. Um, so yeah, I'm intrigued to see who we target because that is exactly the profile I want to see at the club this summer. Holloway, yeah, most likely. It's always a relegation team, isn't it? Do you think Gakpo stays? I don't know. I'd probably say no, And that might be because I don't want him to stay. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking with my heart rather than my head there. Um, but it'll be interesting. If he's been told that, he's not a starter or he's gonna have to fight for his place, he might not want to stick around because he doesn't get past Isak in the striker role, in my opinion. And as it stands, he doesn't get past Rio and Ngumoha. So for me, he's gonna have to settle for a role at the bench. Maybe he doesn't want to do that. Who knows? But let's see. I think it'll depend on what kind of business Liverpool want to do. If they feel like they have an adequate replacement for Gakpo, they'll do business. If not, I think they'll stick in for one more year. But not my footballing rivalry. I'm a Liverpool Red. Yeah, we won't sign a finger if Gakpo stays. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one. If Gakpo remains, then we won't sign a left winger. It will be 2 right wingers, I think, is what we'll look at, which is a possibility, just so there's not too much sort of chopping and changing or disturbance within the squad. So I can see that happening. So let's see. He's gonna let Tottenham Spurs take. Yeah, do you know what? When I saw the report, I'm thinking, oh, I hope this is true because I would never thought any team would want to spend 70 odd million on Gakpo. So if they are, I'm all for it. Pierce says new left winger. No, not for me. Nunes as a striker makes more sense, but as a left winger, no, not for me. Hmm. Be honest, Oz. Do we think Real stays at Liverpool for all his life? Like if he becomes a superstar, like we think, I don't know. 'Cause all his life sounds like a big commitment, doesn't it? Um, If I'm being honest with you, no, I don't expect him to stay all his life. If I'm being honest with you, um, but who knows? Who knows? But no, I don't think he. I'll be surprised. Um, because obviously things change. If we have a new coach, he might not fancy the player, or maybe he needs a change of scenery or change of atmosphere or whatever. There can be so many factors of why players leave. He you know, I'm touching wood here. I don't want no one to feel like um I'm wishing anything bad on him. But if he's not able to fulfill his potential, then clubs will targeting that a bit more on the mid-team kind of level, if that makes sense. But it just depends. Football isn't plain sailing. It's not easy to predict in that manner. I would love for him to stay and become the global superstar that I think we're all envisioning. It's too early to say, to be honest with you. You say no, I probably not, but it's too early to say that kind of thing. Boko Great says we shouldn't overpay for Diamonde. We can probably sign Nusa, Ronnie Bajgi. I don't know who that is, and Trincao. I'm not a big fan of Trincao. I think he's a decent player, but I don't think he's the right fit for us in terms of Liverpool. Um, Keep news away from our club, full stop. Where do you think he goes, Oz? Who's that in regards to Rio? I can see him joining like one of the big teams in Europe, like a Bayern or not, as in not now, in like years to come, at least like 5, 10 years, please. Like a Real Madrid, or I think I see him going to La Liga if I have to make a prediction, like a Real Madrid or Barcelona. Uh, when you say Madrid, yeah, I can see him going to one of those clubs. To be fair, Lauren has said Stock was the reason Salah left and they hate each other. Did he say that out loud? Bloody hell. We all knew that. Let's be honest, but yeah, always got to trust your best mate to spill the beans, I guess. Peter says Nunes is a free transfer. He's got the chaos. Wouldn't have him as a striker, but he could replace Gakpo. He wants to come back. Apparently, not for me. Not as a left winger. No, I'd rather go for a different profile. But I would take him as a striker, as a backup striker. If I'm being honest with you. But no, not for me. Not for me. To be fair, I would. We'll talk about Nunes very shortly, but not for me. Another player that has been linked to a move away from the club is McAllister. Now, apparently, Real Madrid are interested in signing the Argentine midfielder. He has dipped in form dramatically since last season. Um, a move largely depends on who wins the presidential election. Someone mentioned that it was Perez has won it, which is crazy. So let's see what happens. But I'm sure we'll get official news in the coming days. If they want to sign a new midfielder, I think McAllister will definitely be top of the list or top three at least. Yeah, so we could see him, moving on in some capacity. For me, I feel like it's the right time to cash in on McAllister. And I feel like we should look at signing a different profile, which is a number 6. I think that's the profile we need to go for. If Jones leaves as well, then we got to sign another player. So, we spoke about Wharton earlier on. Maybe we sign Wharton and a number 6. That would be the perfect balance for me looking at the squad. So, hopefully, that's what we can do. But yeah, only time will tell in terms of what we end up doing. But of course, it makes a big difference in terms of who departs, because then we know there's gaps in the squad, looking at the overall picture as well. Excuse me, Nunes is a free transfer. He's got the chaos. Wouldn't have him as a striker, but he could replace Gakpo. He wants to come back apparently. I know he wants to come back, but he's a winger. He's a striker. He can't open goal. Yeah, I wouldn't want him as a winger. To be fair, I think that makes no sense. He looks unromantic. Is that in the picture? Yeah, I don't know. That was the last day of the season, so I'm not sure how he was feeling there. Firstly, do you realize none of those players are right wingers, right? Nusa are right, but he's a left winger, so I can only see us buying him with Gakpo, Levy, and Trincao is a cam. Yeah, Trincao is a cam. He can't play on the wings. They tried at Wolves, it didn't work. Tried him as a striker, it didn't work. So yeah, not for me. Did he not play on the left for us before? There were games where we put him on the left, but he wasn't like a starter on the left. It was like during a match where we needed a bit more pace on the left side, so we put him there from a tactical point of view. But he wasn't a left winger. I wouldn't categorize him in that way anyway. Where has football gone wrong in your opinion, Oz? Um, it depends what you're asking me specifically, but in general terms, I feel like the game has become more about systems rather than individuality. So growing up, we would see real number nines, you'll see real number 10s, you'll see proper wingers. Like every position, you'll see the highest of qualities. Now it's all about fitting within a system, within a style of play, and you kind of become a bit robotic because you're giving out instructions to do a job, but you're not allowed to play with freedom, or you're not allowed to express yourself. That's what excites me about Iraola, because that is his philosophy. He wants players to go out there, play with freedom, express yourself, play with free spirit, and that's how you get the best out of individuals, like, or players in general. So maybe Iraola is going to bring back football. Who knows? That's the way I'm looking at it. So that's a big statement to say, but that's how I'm looking at it. It's going to be a positive way in terms of how we play going forward, and I'm so excited to how our season is going to begin in terms of the squad. What players have we added? Who's going to start here and there? I'm excited for the season coming ahead. So yeah, that's where I feel like the football's gone wrong a little bit, and that's not me pinpointing on a specific coaches. It's just the game has evolved in that way, and that's why nowadays you don't really see those type of number 10s we saw, back in the day. Just to name, like Del Piero's, your Zidane's. Of course, Zidane played a bit more on the left side, but he was naturally number 10. You had who else? You had your Rui Costas, those type of players, absolute ballers. Unfortunately, you don't really get those type of players anymore like that. Are you as hyped for the World Cup than you were for many years ago, Ozzy? Not as much, to be fair. I'm excited because I just love to watch football. But for me, international football doesn't have that same level of excitement for me as it used to. Growing up, I would love to watch, like, the World Cups that stick in my mind is World Cup '98. In particular, I thought that was one of my favorite World Cups, and then 2002, and then so on. But I would say last 5-10 years, it's not really been about. I've been more heavily invested in Liverpool. Not that I wasn't prior to that, but I feel like the international scene, maybe because they're playing too many games now, it's kind of lost its buzz about the game as such. So for me, yeah, not the same kind of level, to be fair. PS Italian 90. I was born, but I was too young to remember what happened in Italian 90. So yeah, slightly before my time there. Another player that we have been linked with is Senesi. But unfortunately, it's not official news, but it looks like we might have missed out on the target, as apparently he has signed a new contract with Tottenham Hotspurs, which will last until 2030. So he's been given a 4-year contract, which is a big contract for a 29-year-old. So, all the best to him if that's the case. But I feel like we missed a trick here. He would have been a good signing for us. Experience, knows how to play under Iraola, and I think it would have been a great fit for us in the back line. But if he is going over there, good luck to him, but I guess it wasn't to be. But a player that is also being linked to us right now is Maxence Lacroix. That is a player that I mentioned a few days ago in my show about who we can replace Konate, and he was one of the names that I mentioned, and now he's been linked with the club. So apparently he's been heavily observed by Liverpool and could venture into making a move for the French defender. Apparently he's only available for about 35-40 million pounds, which is peanuts in this market. So if that's the case, I think he would be a sensible signing, a player with Premier League experience, and I feel like he can definitely play alongside Van Dijk and form a good partnership there. So I would be pleased with that kind of signing. Whether it happens or not, we'll have to wait and see. On to the next one. Another centre back that I've been linked to is Esteve. Now, the Burnley centre back has been linked with a move to Liverpool. He is valued at around £50 million, highly regarded by Andoni Iraola. So that's the key there. Maybe he was a Bournemouth target before he came over to Liverpool. So maybe he's someone that is being looked at. You've also got the likes of Chelsea, Everton, and Crystal Palace monitoring the left foot centre back ahead of a transfer battle here. So Esteve, I haven't seen him much in recent times. But whenever I have watched him in the past, he looks like a solid defender, left-footed, physical, strong presence. So it could be an interesting option. 50 million sounds very high for me. So if that is the valuation, I think we can go elsewhere. I think we can sign Schlotterbeck for that kind of fee, and it will be a release clause as well. So we don't have to even talk to the club in that regard. So for me, at that price, I think it's a little bit steep, but he is a decent player, to be fair. Another player that has been linked to move away from the club is Harvey Elliott. Now, we all know he has a huge opportunity to reignite his Liverpool career after Arne Slot was sacked very recently, but he has a fight in his hand. He will need to showcase his talent to the new coach, which is Andoni Iraola. But despite that, he still attracted interest from other clubs. Leipzig were very close to signing him last year, and teams like Leeds United are also interested in his services. Liverpool are looking to get in the region of around 35 million for the midfielder. So my thoughts on Elliott, I think it'll be interesting to see how Elliott performs once he returns to pre-season. I just have a feeling he might not be utilized. I think Irola might move him on, and I can see him joining a team like a Leipzig where he goes over to a different league and hopefully rediscovers himself because maybe playing under Villa it's made him a bit delusioned in terms of what English teams can offer for him. He's linked to Leeds United, which I think might excite him in terms of their culture. They got a very passionate fan base. But I think a move to a European league like the German league, the Bundesliga, would make more sense. But that's just my take on Harvey Elliott. I'm just going to go through some of the comments. Mike says Esteve is not even close to worth that much. No, he's not. I totally agree with that. He's not worth that price at all. Now, this is the man we've been talking about recently, is Darwin Núñez. So apparently we are monitoring Darwin Núñez as an option for Liverpool in order to strengthen our attack. Darwin Núñez is only 26 years of age, of course, previously played for us, but after falling short of expectations, he moved to Al Hilal and is now available as a free agent. And apparently, the player is reportedly open for a move to Liverpool. So, my take on this, I know we need another attacker. It depends in terms of what the club are trying to do. And when I say that, I would rather us sign 3 wingers and not a striker at all. So 2 wingers, so a one left winger and one right winger, and another right winger, but that right winger can play the striker role. So a la Jarrod Bowen. That's the one I would look at in terms of that profile there. I don't feel like we need to sign a like for like striker because Ekitike will be back later in the season. Um, and I don't see Darwin is coming back for like a 1 year deal. He wouldn't come as a short term fix. I feel like he still has enough quality to engineer a move to a team in Serie A or La Liga. So I feel like he does have the abilities to return to Europe and play at the highest level. So for me, it's a no. It wouldn't be the worst signing, if I'm being honest with you, especially on a free transfer. You can't really go wrong there. But it just depends on his mind frame. Is he happy to settle for a short term contract? Because it won't be a long term one, in my opinion. But yeah, that was just my views on Darwin Núñez there. Pierce is 100% taking Núñez. So we've got a Núñez fan in the house there. Okay, the final rumor to discuss today is regarding Richard Hughes. Apparently, he's close to moving to Al Hilal. The current sporting director is in advanced talks with the Saudi officials to become their new sporting director. Now, if that move was to be confirmed, it wouldn't be like next week he leaves. It's not quite like that. He will complete his task in terms of summer transfer dealings. And then after the window closes, that's when he will decide to move on to Al Hilal. So it'll be later this season or next year in terms of calendar year. So that could be the situation here. Um, Do I see this move happening? I think so. I think there's something to it. We've been speaking about this move to Al Hilal for quite some time. So I can see him moving at some point. But then again, he's got Irola, he's gotten his man at the club. So maybe he'd want to stay, especially if Liverpool were to produce absolute wonders this season. He might want to stay on. So maybe watch this space. It's not a full-on conclusion that he will leave, but there is an opportunity that he could leave in the near future. So we'll have to wait and see. Just got a couple comments and then we will wrap up for today. Mike says, for me, it all depends on his wage, but he's still technically the best free striker on the market. True. That makes sense as well. It will depend on what he's able to accept or what he wants to accept. If he's happy to accept a 1-year contract on a slightly lesser salary than he was on beforehand, could be an option. If Nunes is chaos in the player, he'll be a hurricane in the Italian league. I think he would absolutely cook in the Italian league. I think that would be very much suited for his skill set, which is why I was surprised he went to Al Hilal in the end. I feel like he should have gone over to Serie A. He was linked with Napoli, AC Milan, two teams I remember that he was linked with. So for me, that would make a lot of sense in that regards. He says Nunes got penalties based on his misses offsides in relation to his pilot. He's now free. Yeah, that is true, but you can't teach dogs new tricks, unfortunately. So for me, we're gonna get the same issues again. Double D said bring Lewandowski on a 1-year deal. That would be very, very smart signing there. Let's see what Lewandowski wants to do. He hasn't played in the Premier League, so maybe we can offer him that pathway. That would be a good option for us to have. Of course, he's at his latter stage of his career, but if you have an accomplished goal scorer like Lewandowski off the bench, can't go wrong in that scenario. So I'd probably prefer Lewandowski ahead of Nunes in terms of when it comes to free transfers in that scenario. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's give a shout to everyone. Shout out to a lot of comments. I really appreciate it, the engagement today, guys. Shout out to Bo, shout out to Wayne, shout out to LFC Monster, shout out to Ozan, shout out to Ray, shout out to Cs Mikali. I hope I pronounced that right. I've got to tune up my English, and English is my first language, more or less. So yeah, I don't even know how to pronounce that name. So hopefully I haven't butchered it too badly there. Who else do we have? We've got shout out to Wayne, shout out to Costelicious, shout out to Peter, shout out to Bo. Who else do we have? Shout out to the Awakened Phoenix. Shout out to Martin. Shout out to Double D. Be up Double D as always. Shout out to Chibuke. I think that is it. Apologies if I haven't called out your name. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, in terms of upcoming shows, we'll definitely have some shows coming up. So we'll probably do a transfer-related show before the World Cup, where I play sporting director role. So I'm Richard Hughes for the day, and I will give you my take in terms of who I think should be bought, who should be sold, who should be loaned out, present the finances involved as well as realistically as possible, and then present to you the squad for next season under Iraola. So that's something that we can try and do in the next few days. Plus, we'll have some transfer talk shows as well, I'm sure, with lots of rumors signing up as they always do. And then we'll start doing our watch along series from Wednesday, I believe, is the first match, isn't it? Or yes, I think it's Wednesday. So we'll start doing it from there onwards. We'll do the opening match, which is Mexico versus South Africa, and then from there on, I'll try and do as many games as possible. Of course, depending on work schedule and everything else, but hopefully I'll try and do as many watch alongs with you guys as always. And yeah, if you have already, please don't forget to hit that notification bell so you know exactly what shows I'll be doing and what time I start on the day as well. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.